Okay. All right, guys. Looks like I'm live. Oh, it's been a few weeks. Good to talk to you guys again. Happy to be reacquainted with the whole live thing. Again, good to see you guys on here. Um, yeah. So because it's been a few weeks, want to make sure we have a really good session today. Let me look up what questions I'm supposed to be covering, and also let the Facebook group know that we are live. So give me just a moment here while I do that. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So now the Facebook group has been informed. For those of you that just hopped in, how you doing? Hey, Mark. Good to see you, man. Uh, Sorry I missed you last week, but we're here this week. Um, might end up with a few small interruptions here, but right now we're ready to go. Now, again, let me look up the questions I'm going to be answering. And let's see. Again, because it's been a few weeks, I'm going to try to really get a good session in here today. But first, I got to figure out which question. And, Mark, if you have any questions that you've been thinking up, feel free to ask. And as always, I'll prioritize answering those questions over the ones that I was already prepared to answer. There we go. Okay, so today or this evening, I'll be covering how can I start this outside of the US? How do you determine how much to charge clients? And how do I know if I'm ready to start this business? All right. So, three pretty good questions. And for those of you that are just hopping in, make sure you say, hey, I want to know who it is, right? I know that there's people watching me, but I have no idea who specifically is. So, say hi. But anyway, so I just wrote down the three questions I'm going to be answering. And so the first is, let me do a couple quick announcements. The first is, um, so next Wednesday, I'm going to be out of town. I'll be in Atlanta. I'm not quite sure. Hey, Bill, good to see you, man. Good to see you in here. Thanks for hopping on, man. Got any questions? Feel free to let me know. The first announcement is that this upcoming Wednesday, I'll be in Atlanta. Um, I'm not sure. Hey, Denise. Good to see you in here. New Jersey represent. All right. Next week I'll be in Atlanta. I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to do this call. I will attempt to do this call, but we'll see. I'm going to be doing some consulting work. And actually, this time around, some of that work will be related to call centers. So that's always exciting and fun. So next week I might not be here, just letting you guys know in advance. But going forward, I'm going to try to do it as often as possible. Also, I actually haven't checked the calendar to see if there's any like holidays that are going to be coming up. I'm not sure if I should be doing this next Wednesday anyway, because it's the night before Thanksgiving, and who knows, if any of you are going to be cooking or something. Let's see. Wednesday does not fall on Christmas or Christmas Eve. or the same for New Year's and New Year's Eve. So I might be around then. All right. But again, for those of you that don't have questions right now, the big three questions that I intend on answering tonight are, again, written down. How can I start this outside of the US? How do you determine how much to charge clients? And how do I know if I'm ready to start this business? Now, all three of these questions were questions that were asked by others in between the last session and today. So I figured I'd sort of tackle those. The first one being, how can I start this outside of the US? So, excuse me. In starting this business, um, the nice thing about the business itself and also the course that I've created, but most importantly, the business itself, is it doesn't really matter where you are when you try to launch this. The only thing that matters is that you got consistent, pretty uninhibited internet connections, right? You need to be able to, create and run your business primarily using the internet and reliable internet. And, if you're going to be managing agents, if you're going to be dealing with maybe taking some calls yourself, like monitoring different people that are on or off the phone, you need to be in a situation where your internet is not only there, but it's pretty solid and secure. Um, for the most part, it's probably far more important that the agents that are working for you, wherever they're located, they don't need to be in the same country as you. They don't need to be, they just need to be on the same planet. That's about it. And you know what? Maybe there's some technology that could have them do it in space, but I don't know. But your agent should need to have a strong, solid internet connection, even if yours isn't great. So if you're in Bora Bora, relaxing on a beach, if you are in, I don't know, somewhere in a concrete structure that doesn't have very good internet connection, and you can only use internet during the day at some cyber cafe, great, you can still run your business. Just make sure the agents that you have working for you have a solid internet connection. Outside of that, you can start this wherever. So the two things you'll have to figure out is where you're going to base your company when you register, because I'm assuming you're going to register. That would be the most legal and safe way to do things. Uh, and then also where your agent's going to be. Again, they can be anywhere, but I recommend that they're at least all in the same country or region. Um, and then the third question is, where are the majority of your clients going to be located? So excuse me, there's a decent amount of call centers to start off that are located, outside of the U.S. that have U.S. clients. There's one call center I know of that's in Australia serving European clients. There's European serving American. There are Canadian companies serving all over the globe and also American clients. And there's one American company that I know of that's serving primarily clients in Ireland. So, there's a lot of cool combination. Oh, there's some African based businesses that are popping up now. Hey, Jalissa, good to see you in here. Feel free to tell us where you're from. And, thank you for being here. Yeah, there's some, companies popping up in Africa that I believe were started as a result of this course. I know there's some students out of Africa. And they are serving, other places within Africa, and there's one that's serving the American market. So the point is, you can be anywhere, and you can pretty much serve anywhere, as well as the people you're looking to serve, as long as the people you're looking to serve have the need. And frankly, oh, awesome! What part of Florida? I love Florida. Um, as long as you're reaching out to the right types of potential clients, right? So looking up individuals that just would never need a virtual receptionist company, then you're going to fail. But if you're targeting those that have a need for a virtual receptionist company, again, if you're doing a quality job, meaning your agents are competent and they have a solid internet connection, then you'll be able to get this done. Tampa Bay, awesome. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about whether you're able to start this outside the U.S. In terms of the how, I go over everything in the course. What is covered in the course applies to whether you're launching it in the U.S. or wherever else. The only thing, of course, to take note of is, depending on where you are, your pricing is going to be a certain way. Uh, what currency you're using, blah blah blah, and of course how you register your company is going to be a certain way. And then also the phone system that I recommend may not apply to the country that you're in. But if that's the case and you're a student, feel free to reach out. Oh, awesome. Tampa Bay is awesome. Feel free to reach out. And us in the tribe community will figure out the best resources for you. Okay. And so the second question that came in, and again, for those of you that are on the call right now, feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and I will prioritize answering those questions over questions that are already written here. Okay. So the second question that came in is, how do you determine how much to charge clients, right? Um, charging clients is a big part of whether or not your business is going to work, right? Knowing how much to charge them is important. Um, there's a lot of different connotations and psychological triggers that happen based off of how much you're charging. And frankly, you can be in the exact same space and same niche, but essentially be running a different business if you're charging, your pricing scheme is different enough from other in your same marketplace, right? Or in your same niche. Um, for instance, if you sort of have a vision or a business model and approach of essentially trying to have the lowest prices possible while still making a profit, well, great. You'll be able to have lower pricing. But if you haven't, sort of figured out a way to have lower wages while still maintaining quality, which is usually by hiring people overseas. If you're, sticking with people that are in your same country or in the country where your clients are located, and you seek to be the lowest price, you're going to have the lowest profit margin, and you're probably going to have the most painful, business building process of all. If you're too expensive, um, you know, you're probably, I think anybody can land certain clients. And, one of the largest companies in this industry or in this niche, Vicky, not Vicky Virtual, although we are a decent company, Ruby Receptionist, I think they're doing 9 figures a year now, 100 million plus a year. They're like the most expensive I've seen. So there's clearly a market for people that want to pay more. And the point is, when you pay more, when you charge more and people pay more, you have more room. Your margin might not be better because maybe you're spending it in a different way, but you have a lot more room and buffer to do the things that you really want to do. Instead of paying people, an average of $12 an hour, maybe you're paying an average of $16 to $18 an hour. Maybe you're also paying benefits like Ruby Receptionist does. Maybe you have an actual office location. Maybe you have a good budget at the business growth to have your own IT department, all kinds of stuff. You can't do those things if you're on a low margin. So the simple answer as to how much you should charge clients, the first thing you need to do is determine what type of company you want to be. Do you want to be ultra premium? Do you want to be, that low cost, efficient situation? Or do you want to be somewhere in the middle? Vicky Virtual, my company, was somewhere in the middle, right? Honestly, when I first started, there was a competitor of ours, um, uh, uh, Gabbyville, and we literally copied the pricing that Gabbyville had at the time. Now they raised their prices, and then we eventually raised ours, and they actually have a completely different pricing scenario now. But we didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. We knew that Gabbyville was growing. We knew that they were doing well, and we knew that that was based off a certain pricing. So if they were able to do it, I did some napkin math and found that seemed like we'd be able to do it. And one beautiful thing that helps you predict pricing is our once again, it's in the course. Our sort of forecasting calculator. It allows you to put in how many clients you have, what your pricing is, and gives a sense of what your cost are, what your profit margin is going to be. Okay, Mark. Mark asked, cold calls. How many many seem to struggle with? Any insight, or is that in the course? Okay, so um, you know, I can give a nutshell approach to cold calls. We do talk about cold calling in the course. That is part of how I built my business. We also talk about it a decent amount in our tribe Facebook group, which is associated with those that have purchased the program. But in a nutshell, the way I approach cold calling is you're trying to essentially do one thing. What you're trying to do is figure out how your prospect is getting their calls handled, right? Um, okay. I apologize. My phone's gonna distract me a few times, but I'll make it quick. Multitasking here. Um, you have to basically dial down the most efficient way or the quickest way to get that one piece of information from the people that you're reaching out to, your targets, your prospect. How are they currently getting their calls handled, right? Because that's an open-ended question that they have to put some effort into answering. It's not a yes or no question, and it's the perfect question from which you can respond to the answer in a way that's productive for both sides. So when they say, "Oh, I handle the calls themselves," the follow-up question would be, "Okay, well, do you ever miss any calls?" Right? It's a pretty obvious follow-up question. It's the type of follow-up question that, unless the person really doesn't want to talk to you at all, it's not an annoying, stupid question. It's a very obvious question. So you feel compelled to answer it, even if you're not necessarily interested yet. And so, when you're calling someone, they say, "Hey, this is Bob Plumbing. Hi, my name's Donald. I work for a company named Vicky Virtual Receptionist. We take calls for small businesses such as plumbing companies, such as yourself. I just want to ask really quickly, Bob, how do you currently get your calls handled?" Something like that, right? I haven't done a pitch in years, but that was actually pretty close to what my opening sequence would be. Real simple. And again, usually they will say, "You know what, I'm not interested," right then and there, and just shut it down. Or they'll say, "Honestly, I typically, I just answer the phone myself." Or they'll say, "Oh, we already have an answering service," or whatever the case might be. Or oftentimes, this happens a lot. They won't pick up because they're not currently getting their calls handled properly. So when they say, "Oh, I'm answering calls myself," um, "Oh, okay, great. Well, do you ever miss any call?" "Oh, yeah, when I'm out on a job, sometimes I miss a call and I just call them back." "Oh, okay, well, do you ever find yourself calling people back and they say they found someone else?" Every now and then, but it's not a big deal." "Well, how about this, Bob? I'd love to at least grab your email. What our company does is we enable businesses such as yourself to capture those calls. If you're out on a job, you can focus on doing your work. We're not very expensive at all. We just start at $99 a month, and we enable you to capture those calls. Honestly, if you capture one more job a month, it's probably more than $99 to you, right?" And they might say yes or no. Um, and if they're sort of like standoffish, just say, "You know what, Bob? I'm not trying to sign you up for anything today. I'd just love to grab your email. I'd love to send you some more information. And if you're interested, I'll follow up with you, and we can schedule maybe a longer call to, however you finish that sentence." But that was how I approached cold call. And when I use that approach, the most important thing is who you're targeting. You can have the greatest pitch in the world and target the wrong people and not get results, or you can have a pretty mediocre or bad pitch maybe, but target the right people and end up with pretty good results. So for me, it was about 60 and one calls would lead to a paid client. So, wait. You know what? I can't remember anymore, but I remember when I created the course. Um, it would at least lead to a sign up. So about 50% of my signups would lead to a paid client. So let's say it was 120 calls. Now, honestly, I can do 120 calls in a day. My last job as a cold calling sales rep, I literally did 250 calls a day. Now, you guys don't have to do 250 calls a day if you don't want to, but the reality is that those that are making more calls, no matter what their performance is, they're gonna grow faster. They're gonna have more momentum, and grow their business more quickly. So again, for me, it's about 60 calls for a sign up with decent targeting, uh, and using the approach pretty similar to what I described. So I talk about it a lot more in the course and in the group, but that's the nutshell. Okay, so Mark, hopefully that helps. Okay, Denise asked, those here that already have their call center up and running, how can we, how can we, how can we contact them to outsource ourselves as an agent? Oh, okay, so Denise is wondering essentially if there's any opportunity to work for some of wait, are you looking to potentially work for existing call centers that are up and running, or are you wondering about being able to reach out to a random small business and being like their receptionist? Um, Give me some further contact on that, Denise. Um, okay, Jalissa, when you landed your first client, how many agents did you have? So day one, when we launched the company, we had two full-time agents, and that was U.S. based. One was my co-founder's sister, who had just finished high school semester early because it was December going into January 1st, 2015 when we launched, and then also my friend's mom who had recently retired and was bored. She was like 67 years old, I believe. Uh, so those were our two agents, and from day one they were full time. Uh, so also day one we landed. I thought it was seven, but it turns out day one we landed five clients, and by the end of the first week we had 10. So that was pretty good, because we did a pre-launch. I outlined how we did the pre-launch in the course. But yeah, so in terms of being able to serve client day one, you're going to need two agents, unless you want to do limited hours, meaning all of your clients should be in the same time zone. If that's the case, you can get by with either yourself, assuming you're reliable, or one incredibly reliable employee that never called off, or gets sick, or has a vacation day in the first month or so. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, Bill. Bill asked, I like the way you announced your launch date prior to actually launching the business. I've got a feeling I know how I would do it as well, but I'll just have to wait and see. Content marketing would be my go-to. Agreed. How did you know Vicky Virtual was worth what it was when you sold it? That's a good question. Um, Well, honestly, I just went based off of a few sales that existed in the market, right? So that's how I basically feel about anything. It's one, a combination of that, and two, a number in your head that you've thought to yourself, oh, if I sell for this much money, I'll be happy. It actually happened in both cases when it came to my cleaning business, as well as the call center business. When I sold my cleaning business, which was a much smaller sale, six-figure range, um, I had just in the last few weeks, with my partner, who was my dad. My dad and I did that company. We were like, man, if we sold for this amount of money, I think that'd be cool. And then literally 2 weeks later, uh, one of my Vicky Virtual clients that we had become real cool with hit us up and like, yo, we're looking to go in the Chicago area. We're looking to expand. We'd like to offer you this much for the company, and it matched what we wanted. And so I counted 20% higher, and they said yes. 10-minute conversation. Then 3 weeks later, the money was in our account, so it was fantastic. Uh, Same thing with the call center. It was an unsolicited offer. I hadn't thought that much about what I would sell it for because I wasn't in the market to sell it. Like I wasn't trying to sell it. And so I got an unsolicited offer. And when the guy said, "Oh, I'll give you an offer," I started to think to myself, "Oh, what do I think it should sell for?" So I just again went based off of sort of like how someone as a realtor would determine the value of a home. They look at comps in the area, they look at the attributes of that particular home or listing, and they get a sense of what the homeowners want to sell it for. And through those three combinations, uh, that's what the listing comes in at. So the guy countered, the guy came in um, a little bit higher than I thought the company was worth. And then I remember countering 20% above that. And then he said, yeah. So I was like, let's do it. Okay. Yeah, Bill. Besides receiving the offer, was it based on the amount of clients you had? Yeah, I think about those things, right? Like how much revenue you have, how many clients you have, the type of business it is, right? Knowing that every single one of our clients are recurring is a huge thing. Knowing that the business was pretty much running itself, I only had to do literally 5 hours a week at that point, and I didn't have to do that. I was spending those 5 hours a week. Maybe 2 hours of it was like managing the operations manager, and putting out random, 5-minute fires. Um, but the other 2 to 3 hours was me charging clients because it was just fun to be the one that manually charged clients. And even I wasn't doing all of that anymore. We had too many to deal with. So there were certain clients that I wanted to charge myself, and it's just fun. It allows you to keep sort of a pulse on your business too when you're able to charge clients. So knowing that that was the full extent of the work, that drives up the multiple. If the incoming buyer need to work a lot, then the value of the business they're acquiring goes down a lot. If they don't need to work and it's like a turnkey situation, the value is a lot higher. So I considered all those things in determining the price point. Okay. Denise said, I worked as an agent for a nonprofit called, oh, and just so you know, my sort of upper tier thing with that Ruby, when they sold a portion of their company, it was 6 times revenue. So they were doing roughly 11 million in revenue, and they sold a majority stake in the company at around a $60 million, I think $65 million valuation. And so with that in mind, I knew that a company is worth up to 6 times the revenue. So say the revenue is 5 million, worth up to 30 million. Okay. Okay. So I worked as an agent for a non-profit call center who handled call for PBS TV stations, MCR radio stations under one umbrella. How would I go about landing a contract if I was up and running? Denise, that's a big question that I can't answer on this call. One, because it's heavily involved, right? One quick thing I can say is that I'm not sure if you're African American. I'm assuming you're a woman. As a woman or maybe a minority, you can get certified. So make sure you get certified. There's certain things you have to get done in order to be certified. I think you have to be in business for a year, blah, blah, blah. And once you're certified, there are a lot of different programs. There's a lot of government grants. There's a lot of government contracts. And the companies that are able and allowed to submit a bid, in some cases, have to be minority owned or women owned, that type of thing. There was actually a company that were doing I think it was around a $10 million per year contract in Illinois. This is actually still happening. I'm not sure. Yeah, I consider it. This is happening right now. And they tried to find a company that could handle this in the Chicago area. Okay. Now, my company was based in Texas anyway, but they looked into this and they found that there wasn't one, I think there was exactly one black owned, like, majority owned call center in the entire city of Chicago that was a straight up call center, was independent and not attached. So it might feel like this is a saturated thing, but it's not at all. I'm not kidding. This was a $10 million contract. They were like trying to figure out. We have a new senator in Illinois, state senator, not the federal senator. That was like, yo, we said we're going to do 20% of all of our spend being on minority-owned stuff. I'm going to start enforcing that. So what can we do to start making 20% of our state spend minority-owned businesses? That has to happen. How are we going to do it? And so, again, there's this contract, and it still hasn't been settled yet, but I think they're close. And they were literally trying to find one, and there were like 3 potentials, and only one ended up being the potential type of company, and that one was too small and didn't have the crap together enough anyway. So it turned out in this large metropolitan area, third largest in the country of almost 10 million people, there's not one minority-owned call center that fits the bill to be able to have a contract. So, I'm not going to tell you how to get a contract right here and there, but I will say I can confirm that there's a lot of opportunity there. Okay. Jalissa, thank you. What's the average pricing per minute? How did you choose your pricing when you first? I did my pricing based off of Gabbyville. So I literally copy what Gabbyville did. I don't do like a per minute thing. We just did, I guess it is a per minute. You just have minute tiers. So honestly, if you want to know what a potential pricing seems to be, just go to vickyvirtual.com. Like that's what our pricing was. That's the simplest way to do it. You don't want to overcomplicate it. Very simple. Check out the pricing there. That's an example. Now, Gabbyville changed their pricing to, I think maybe they changed it again. The last time I checked, it was call based. They charge per call instead of per minute. You can check that out too. Those are 2 different examples. But if you're anywhere near that, the numbers are going to work out, so I wouldn't overthink it. Okay. Denise, I would like to outsource myself right now as an agent for a side hustle. Okay. Yeah, so, there's a few people looking to do that. The main thing is you have to figure out what your availability is going to be, especially if it's going to be on the side. And, if you send me a Facebook message, you're going to have to find me on Facebook. I'm under Donald T. Span. Donald T. Span. Message me. Eventually I'll see it. And, just give me your info and I'll forward it. I'll let the tribe group know. And if there's anybody in the group that's interested, to reach out to you directly. Can't promise anything. I do know, though, that there have been at least a few people that have been hired as a result of this. So it is something to consider. Considering, Denise, are you the one? Oh, you're in New Jersey. Okay. So considering you're in the U.S., and I'm assuming you've got great English skills, in that situation, it's a bonus. So, feel free to reach out to me and eventually I'll get back to you on that. And there's that. Oh, 1 second. 1 quick second. Okay. Okay, Mark asked, is it realistic when starting out to answer the phone and try to make cold calls, or is it advised not to do so? I think anything's realistic, right? Um, if you don't have 10 clients, then you're not going to have a lot of calls coming in. And so, if you don't have a bunch of calls coming in, you will have some time to make cold calls, right? Um, so, there's definitely people that have done it. It's sort of a tough needle to thread, and basically all of the revenue that you have coming in initially needs to go toward eventually staffing someone, right? Um, or you can, and this is if you're doing cold call specifically, because you have to be on the phone to do cold call. If you do any other type of marketing like cold email, uh, or some type of ads or some type of content marketing, whatever, anything outside of cold call, um, then you can do that while being available on the phone. And there are several people. I mean, there's at least a dozen that have been like the agent for their new call center, and they essentially create a job for themselves. It's a business, but they create a job for themselves. And then once they get to the point that they're getting pretty busy, and they have, say, I don't know, 3,500 to 5 grand a month in revenue, then they hire on somebody, and then they go from there. So it is possible. It's a little bit tougher when you're cold calling, but it's doable. And for the first, say, 1,500 to 2,000 in revenue, you're really not going to notice much because you're not going to be getting more than 15 calls a day anyway. Okay. Okay. I think that answered everything that came in right now. So, okay. So the last question that I had before was, how do I know if I'm ready to start this business? And I apologize. Okay. How do I know when or if I should start this business? And um, you know, that's a very loaded question. um, it's hard to know whether you're ready to start a business. I will say that you need to have some level of stability in your life in order to start. There's never going to be a perfect time, but starting a business, even under the best circumstances, is difficult. And so the main thing is you need to be able to put consistent effort towards it, right? If you got some crazy stuff going on that makes it so that you can only do, one day a week or like 2 days, this isn't the type of business that starting off you're going to do a good job unless you're putting in some amount of effort each day, even if it's, an hour each day, which is fine. Like people that do more than an hour each day are going to be faster, but this can probably be done at least to a small extent on an hour per day. But the point is that there needs to be consistent effort so that you can start to build momentum. If you can't build momentum, if you haven't like gotten your life in a situation where you can have some type of momentum through consistent and to predictable effort, then you're not ready. If you are able to put in like a daily effort, no matter how small or large that time is, the effort is, then I would say you're ready. Um, the type of business you start, how fast it's gonna grow, specifically what your angle's gonna be, how you work the model, that's all up to you and your financial resources, your time, your personality, and what you want to do. But as far as in general, whether you're ready to start a business, as long as you have some level of stability, and that doesn't have to mean financial stability. It just need to be you're able to control your life on a daily basis. If you're able to do that, I would say just get going. When it comes to the tree thing, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best day is today. So make sure you get in if you can and get that popping. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? I hope I answered everybody's questions somewhat sufficiently. Starting to get sort of cold out in Chicago here. Tampa, I know you're pretty happy over there, but New Jersey, I'm sure you're starting to feel it. Uh, Mark, I think you're in California. Is it getting cold over there? Bill, I can't remember where you are. I apologize. But yeah, so as some of you know, I've got a puppy I've been dealing with, and this he's 6 months old on Friday, and so this is going to be his first winter, and he's it's difficult for him. Okay, so Bill's in Orlando. You're doing just fine over there, buddy. All right, so Denise is moving to Georgia. Pretty far. I'll actually be in Atlanta next week. I think I said that earlier. Okay, so Tampa, great. How did you start hiring people for your company? Well, again, the first two were people that I knew. So it was my co-founder's sister and then my friend's mom. Um, and the way in which we sort of hired people in general was we actually put up a job listing on our site. Somehow, some way, it was picked up by a work from home blog, like a mom blog. It was a giant one. It had to have like probably 1 million readers a month. Seriously unique. Um, and we just started getting blasted. And because that site was so prevalent, other mom blog or blog, work from home blog, started picking us up. We actually got featured on we didn't even know about it. Nobody called us. There were a few people that listed us on their YouTube channel. Rat Race Rebellion is something that I mentioned in my course. Rat Race Rebellion is one of the giant blogs. And from like we had a job listing, and that was all we ever needed. We literally never personally posted a job ourselves ever. And over the course of 5 years, we had over 60,000 applicants. So I never, to this day, I have never once put out a job listing or job ad for Vicky Virtual. So that was pretty cool. Now, in terms of who I consider a qualified candidate, um, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You're looking for people. You worked in the call center industry, so you know what attributes you would be looking for. I tried to stay away from people that had way too much experience, especially in traditional call centers, because what we're doing is more like a receptionist. And so some people, even though they're clearly do the job, they can be too practiced in their current ways. And so they have to unlearn certain things in order to do things the way that works best for the virtual receptionist sort of experience and job. Um, and so there's that. But the other thing is that when you're talking to them on the interview, we always do a phone interview. And the beautiful thing about hiring for call takers, people that are working on the phone, is how you feel when you're just talking with them in conversation during the interview. If you have a certain feeling, then that feeling is going to be projected or transferred to the callers that person takes calls for. So if the applicant, fantastic at an interview, has you feeling all warm and fuzzy, they're articulate, well, not just articulate, but like sharp, good at conversation, good at building rapport, and just have that good energy. And you know it when you hear it, right? Very easy. Um, if they can do that with you on an interview in a stressful situation, they can do that after working their job. So that was honestly the biggest thing. If they nailed that, they were probably going to be hired. Um, I didn't really care if they had a degree. We had a lot of people with master's degrees that were applying. And actually having a freaking master's degree was a little scary because it's not like we were paying $30 an hour. So we were worried about whether they just take it as a stepping stone, 1 or 2 month job and move on. So we sort of tried to stay away from people that were absolutely overqualified. Uh, Also, the applicant submission, there's a lot of applications that will come in that have terrible grammar, uh, that aren't filled out correctly, that don't seem to show any effort whatsoever. And I'm not saying like over the top, but literally no effort, not even all the questions are answered. If that's the case, you can discard them. And frankly, that's going to weed out, especially with the grammatical stuff, it's going to weed out like 70%. And I don't want to be a grammar Nazi and hate on people that have bad grammar, but the reality is that when these people take call for you, they're speaking, which is fine. They might speak well and have bad written grammar, but when they send call summary notes to your clients, if the grammar is bad, your clients aren't going to like it, and that's just not something you can get around. So you want to make sure that the written is good. You can tell in the application whether they get it right. There's going to be a couple situations where they have to write a few sentences, and yeah, bad grammar rears its ugly head pretty quickly. So if the grammar's good, if they filled out the application well, if they got good rapport with you on the phone, they seem interested and enthusiastic in the job, and they're not severely overqualified, that's pretty much it. We didn't go through 100, interviews to find one person. We would go through, 3 or 4 tops. It's just not that hard. Not a very difficult job. It's just a matter of having the right attitude, a willingness to show up, and learning the things you need to learn until you're good at it, and then continuing to have that good attitude and showing up and being reliable as you continue to work for the company. That's it. Denise asked, how many agents did you have when you sold your call center? So unfortunately, Denise, there's a few numbers that I still don't give out. I just don't do it. But we had a lot. We had teams of 4 to 6, and sometimes 7 that were working for batches of clients. And so, we were able to do in the 7 figures in revenue by the time we sold the company. So it was a good amount of agents. And, we had a nice operation going. Okay, so Bill, how long did it take to know if an agent wasn't cutting it? What were the terms for letting them go? Um, you know, there's 2 types of situations when you hire on someone in this space. One is whether they're terrible from the get go, and you can sort of figure that out in the first couple days. Um, like if it's just absolutely egregious and bad. What I will say is that there are some people that are going to make mistakes. In fact, the person that made the most mistake and even had a few of our clients say, hey, take this person off of my account. That person ended up working so hard and being so enthusiastic and continuing to learn. She actually studied receptionist etiquette and stuff outside of the job. She ended up being my operations manager. She was my lead agent, and she was a supervisor, and then she was my operations manager. Um, so it's not a matter of how you start, but a matter of the enthusiasm and whether they actually want to be good at the job. Eventually, they'll be able to overcome whatever their initial skills or credentials were to get to where they need to be and potentially surpass anyone's expectation. So pretty quickly, but the biggest thing always is going to be attitude. If their attitude isn't good, then it becomes pretty easy to let them go. Now that's one, figuring it out quickly. 2 is when for some reason they just don't mesh well. Either they don't mesh well with the team that they're on, or they don't mesh well in terms of this type of work, or they don't mesh well with talking to clients. And this is way easier in terms of dealing with clients. In terms of the entire larger call center industry, this is about as easy as it gets. So if they can't handle these types of callers, they just shouldn't be doing the job. And then also there's some people that are going to slack off. Beautiful thing, once again, is with the call center software, if you're using a robust system like I recommend, of course, or like 5'9", I'll just say it. In those scenarios, you can see literally every metric on everything. And so it's very easy to see, you know, what agents are performing at or above par, in the range, and what agents are performing well below it, even though they're past ramp up period, or what agent would, perform in a certain way and then they're just dropping off and there's no end in sight, right? They just stop caring. When you let them go, I think in every situation, just about, it's been completely obvious to both sides because there's not a whole lot of nuances when it comes to, hey, it takes you forever to pick up the phone. This is not the case for others. Hey, it takes you forever when you finish a call. That's not the case for others. And it's not because you were thinking, it's because you were slacking off and trying to hold off before you had to take another call. You don't have to be as blunt about it, but everyone that works the job knows what the reason is. Like, it's obvious. So the nice thing is that it's always been obvious. I really hate firing people. I really do. And my wife will tell you, but by the time I personally fired somebody, it was time. They deserved it. And just when I was early on, especially in other businesses, the wife used to record me like, "Oh, he man, he had to fire somebody," and so it's really time. But again, in this industry, it's pretty easy. It's not something. There's a lot of things you have to figure out. It's not going to be very difficult to figure that part out. And I can attest that as far as our students that are literally, have launched their first company, they know within a few months. It's like, man, it becomes very obvious, and I've gotten very few questions about why they should let someone go. They just tell me, "Oh, I had to let someone go for this reason." It's the type of thing that's pretty intuitive and is obvious. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so I do have to go at this point. I got another call coming up soon. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to do my best to be on the call next week. Denise said, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I stumbled over you on YouTube typing how to build a call center and you popped up. Yeah, the crazy thing, Denise, is the reason that I said I absolutely have to create this is because as far as virtual receptionist, there aren't any other courses, like comprehensive courses on the planet. And I had the same reaction, like, how is this even possible? This is a $3 billion industry. There's like 1,500 companies in the US in the answering service space, and no one has a course on it. And the average business size in this space is $2 million a year. The average business in this space has 108 employees. The average one has 108 employees. So this is clearly a great space to be in. It's clearly not oversaturated when the average company has 108 employees. So, I thought it was crazy that there wasn't a course on it. So you're welcome. I created this. I've given you the key to the kingdom. Just come in, unlock the door. Now we've got over 30 people, probably 40 that have launched. And I just had a couple buddies come in. So I got to go, guys. I'll see you next week. And I appreciate you all. Have a good one.